It's Sunday, January 6th, 2013. I'm Kevin McShann, and this is the McShann Sports Beat Report.
Joining us tonight, 297 won the tickets. Finest Pat Caputo from the Oakland Press, Jamie Samuelson, Freep.com. Guys, in reality, this game is a footnote. It now becomes about the offseason and decisions that are ahead for this team. But this game really was the entire season in four quarters. Turnovers, mistakes, leading to opportunities for the other team, and in the end, a close game where you had a chance to make plays and you didn't do it.
Yeah, every one of the units I thought stood out and had some great moments. I mean, look what the defense was put with all the turnovers, all those short fields to really hold the Bears to, 3 field goals and a touchdown. But then the touchdown play to Bennett where he really wasn't touched on the simple pass in the flat. The offense, Matthew Stafford, Matthew Stafford inconsistent, but then the second half looked like the Stafford we think he should be. Special teams, the Joyce Bell fumble, so huge mistakes, some nice plays, but again, mistakes that cost him the game.
You know, they're just awful. I can't figure out exactly why. If it's not one thing, it's another thing. And really, there has to be a real serious regrouping here. Today's game, like you guys said, it's a microcosm of the last 8 weeks. They were 4-4. They were in pretty good shape, and then it just fell apart on them.
Well, let's be clear. You lose 8 games in a row. To paraphrase from Joe Dumars, there should be no sacred cows. Every single thing should be on the table for review. Chris Mortensen with a report today that the Ford family, Mr. Ford Sr., Bill Ford Jr. will take a look at Jim Schwartz's contract. I don't know what that really means or what that entails. But nobody should really escape this thing without serious scrutiny. You lost 8 games in a row to end the season.
Here's the thing with Schwartz, and I agree, I think he's going to be back. I think the contract probably predicates that. But I'm having a hard time arguing in his defense. I really am. The negatives are that they are 8 games in a row, the discipline on the field and off the field, the mistakes by him emotionally, the red flag against Houston. What are the positives for Jim Schwartz? I mean, honestly, it's the 9-game winning streak. At the end of 2010 into the start of 2011, they were 9-0, 4-0, and then 5-0. Other than that, I really don't know how to argue on his behalf.
I think the argument, Pat, I'll put this into your court, would be they were 10-6 last year, and they got to the playoffs, and you're looking for some continuity. Outside of that, the arguments do become difficult.
Well, yeah, I mean, they lost 8 games in a row. They were 4-4, and they lost 8 games in a row. Now, some of it had to do with injuries at the end and all the different reasons that come up, but they had a lot of injuries at the end of 2010 when they won 4 games in a row. Their secondary was just like it is right now. I don't know, I mean, you have to give, this is my opinion, you should give them some slack. They were 0-16. He inherited, and so did Martin Mayhew, the worst football team in the history of the NFL, got him to 10-6. They do have a nucleus with the quarterback, the receiver, and a great defensive lineman to get it turned around quickly. Now, as far as what's going on with the Fords, I don't know. When I see the Fords, I question it, because in my line, it's always been Ford Sr. He doesn't even listen to Ford Jr. half the time. But I will say this about Chris Mortensen. The last time when they made the change to Millen, Chris Mortensen had that first. And he called somebody and then told them that they were getting fired. So,
but he may have a source. His report is not that Schwartz is out. His report is that they've at least talked about the possibility, and they should review it. In fact, if they're not reviewing it, they're as irresponsible as anybody could possibly
You should
be.
review everything under the sun.
Other than Calvin Johnson, you're reviewing everything.
Even if everybody stays, whatever it is, because I know you guys get it. I get it too. People come up and they want to say, this guy should be fired, this guy should be fired, this guy should be cut. I don't know what the answers are. But I know there are people paid to get the answers right. And that now becomes incumbent upon them. Get this thing right. Because this season you did lose 8 in a row, and that's not acceptable.
Dan, and it always goes back to Ford Sr. And Ford Sr. has a mixed record of what he does. Sometimes he has knee-jerk reactions. Other times he goes and just stays with somebody for a long time. I don't know what he's thinking in this particular case. Ford Jr. is not, at least unless something's changed, it's not been there's one person that counts here. I don't know what he's thinking. Does anybody know? I guarantee you Chris Mortensen does.
No, I think we'll only know what Mr. Ford is thinking when we ultimately see what the decisions are
Exactly.
on this team. And then beyond that, at this point, we don't know. And I'm sure there will be plenty to talk about for you guys on 97.1
Quite an off-season
throughout the week.
Accountability is the fruits of responsibility and acknowledging the gravity of your transgressions and the impact they have on your ability to be successful. And under that motto, the Detroit Lions receive a failing grade for failing to meet high expectations with a season which was filled with tremendous promise and optimism. And instead of rising up to the challenge, the team, their fans, and the media alike are left scratching their heads as the Lions enter their post-mortem of an offseason, as they pick up the pieces and wonder just what went wrong. In spite of losing their final 8 games of the season and not recording a single divisional victory this year, upper management has decided to give head coach Jim Schwartz and general manager Martin Mayhew another crack at fixing what ails the Lions. However, Mayhew acknowledged at his end-of-season press conference that he and Schwartz may be on thin ice if Detroit's fortunes don't turn around quickly. You have to win, Mayhew said. You have to win football games. So anytime you only win 4, you better have that sense of urgency that you have to get things turned around. You better get things going quickly. We certainly have that sense of urgency, a high level of concern, and we're moving very diligently forward, making sure we put the best team together we can for 2013. According to Mayhew, the club does not envision executing the use of their franchise tag as they did a year ago with defensive end Cliff Averill. However, topping the club's priority list this offseason is attempting to renegotiate the contract status of quarterback Matthew Stafford. In 2013, Stafford will be entering the second to last year of his rookie contract, which he signed following the conclusion of the 2008 season when the Lions displayed an epic image of futility, becoming the first NFL team to record a winless season, as he was drafted to be the savior and face of the franchise. The Lions are hoping to reduce his $20+ million cap figure for 2013. Stafford, defensive tackle Ndamukong Suh, and wide receiver Kelvin Johnson will account for a total of $50 million of the Lions' 2013 salary cap. The Lions brass will also have to make a decision on wide receiver Nate Burleson, who broke his leg during the Monday Night Football matchup against the Chicago Bears this season. The tally of unrestricted free agents for the Lions stands at 23 after they signed safety Don Carey and linebacker Ashley Palmer to contract extensions before the end of the season. The team also has crucial decisions to make on several key starters, including defensive end Cliff Averill, right tackle Guster Charles, linebackers, DeAndre Levy and Justin Durant, and not to mention the back half of their back seven in safety Louis Delmas, who has yet to play a full season as a member of the Lions, and quarterback Chris Houston. Mike Valenti and Terry Foster of 97 won the ticket, took some time to examine the state of the franchise at the conclusion of the season after the Lions limped towards yet another disappointing finish, and both remain puzzled with the inactivity by the decision-makers at the top of this franchise on Black Monday, and both were adamant that change needed to happen in order to change the projection and perception of the franchise and also to restore consumer confidence.
The Lions thing, and this hit Twitter with force, and I talked about it the other day, and all the firings hadn't been completed. But I'm not going to say furious or incensed, but I was very angry that no one was fired here in Detroit. Now, later in the day, the Lions either let go of or didn't renew every offensive position coach except their coordinator, running back coach, wide receiver coach, offensive line coach, tight end coach. Rid of them all. Jefferson, Gash, all but not the coordinator. And you look, and this picture is circulated the interwebs, the top 10 picks in the NFL draft, okay? And the team next to it. And the picture, I think, elicits some emotion or some response, but every team fired somebody except you. You go up and down a list, and it'll say fired coach, fired GM and coach, fired defensive coordinator, fired coach. You get to the Lions at 5? None. Simple question. Does the fact that the Lions are the only team in the top 10? Yes, man. Let me just read it off. Okay. Chiefs, fired coach. Jaguars, fired GM. Raiders, fired offensive coordinator. Eagles, fired coach. Lions, none. Browns, fired coach and GM. Cardinals, fired coach and GM. Bills, fired coach. Jets, fired GM. Titans, fired COO. Those are the top 10 picks. Okay. There's a graphic on SportsCenter. And I retweeted it again, so people can see it. It's been all over Twitter. It's been everywhere. And listen, I said it the other day, and I want to get Terry's opinion on it. Certainly want to get people's as well. But in my mind, I just don't know how you support it. I don't know how you root for the team. I mean, literally every single team that had a year like you fired somebody. Somebody was held accountable. Somebody was told the job you were doing wasn't good enough. You went 4-12, brought everybody back. That, to me, would kill my ability to invest in that. I want to know whether you're on the same page or whether somehow you just love the folksy, whimsical patience that the Lions show. And now Terry's back to talk about it, too. Thank you, my friend. You want to talk about enriching a topic, what Terry Foster does. Mike, that last game against the Chicago Bears, who are the blood rivals of Detroit fans and should be of the Lions, because we absolutely hate Chicago. For the last 5 minutes or a few minutes, I was out in the crowd. I want to see how people react. And I will say this after seeing people leave Ford Field. You need to give them something. And I'm not saying this Jim Schwartz, but you're going to bring back both coordinators. You're going to bring back Martin Mayhew and Schwartz. To me, that's just the Lions saying, you know what, this year was a fluke, a slap in the face, Terry. It's a slap in the face, but to me, it's more that this year was a fluke. Last year, the Lions fell asleep at the switch because they thought 10-6 was where they belonged. That they were a 10-6 team, and they were going to build from that. And what did they do during the offseason? They clowned. They didn't bring in anybody to help them, for this season. Riley Reef, okay, he was like an H-back, wherever the heck he was. But that's not good enough. And they fell asleep. And now I think the theme this year is going to be, yeah, you know what, they're going to pay a little bit more attention to detail, but in the back of the Lions' minds, and I talked to a bunch of players, this year was the fluke, not last year. And I think that theme is going to play out for the rest of 2013. And fans are going to be on both sides of that thing, Mike. I would not have necessarily gotten rid of Jim Schwartz. And there was a bogus story, and I'm going to call it bogus because I don't believe it, that the board's quote-unquote, or
something. You got to show that there's some change, and not just a running back coach and a wide receiver coach and whoever else they're going to get rid of. Because I'm understanding they may get rid of one or two other coaches. That's not good enough. But Mike, the other thing is you can't react to everybody else. Just because everybody else does it doesn't mean you have to do it.
Harry, 7 coaches were fired 2 years ago. 7 coaches were fired last year. 7 coaches were fired this year. This does not believe where patience is virtue. That is true, and it's a quick twitch league. I'm simply saying this. It is good enough. You know what? Because people still line up and support. It is still good enough.
Oh, of course.
That's how the Lions have gotten away with being so few.
But Mike, do you necessarily fire a coach after he wins 10 games and then goes to 4?
Particularly, you know what? Particularly got whacked.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The Lions organization has been so bad.
Yep.
They're coming off the Matt Millen era that I think whoever took over him, you've got to give them some time. Mike, both of us thought last year was a fluke.
Do you agree? And you would have come on the air had they fired either Gunther Cunningham or Scott Linehan. You would have come on the air and supported them.
Yes, I would have.
Okay, that's all I want.
Yes, sir.
I'm not calling for Schwartz or Mayhew. Would I like to see it, of course. But if they had just fired a coordinator and gone a different direction, I think that would have been enough for everybody involved, and we move forward.
But Mike, in your continuing path of not listening to me,
See, that's hurtful.
I said I saw these people in Ford Field and said you got to give them something. It may not have to be Schwartz or Mayhew, but give them one of the coordinators. I think the Lions should come up with some little, even if it's flimsy, and comfort. I know you really don't want to retire. You should say you're going to retire so we can move on and get another defensive coordinator here. Or Scott Linehan. You got to give these people something to let them know that there's some change. Now, Mike, we're talking about discipline. That's what, quote unquote, the Fords may have been upset with Schwartz.
Right.
Do you know there's the possibility? I'm not saying it's going to happen. There's a possibility you're getting rid of Sean Jefferson, a guy that held people accountable, would get in their faces and talk about their mama. You're getting rid of him, but you can bring back Titus Young Sr.
Harry, how do you get rid of every guy who coaches offensive players, but not get rid of the coordinator?
Bam.
What are you telling me? Your offensive coordinator is Bobby Fischer? And he's just an absolute genius held back by the constraints of inferior subordinates?
Yes.
Superior,
inferior subordinates, and injuries, Mike, don't forget about those.
But
the Lions are the only team in the NFL that has
those injuries happen, and it costs other people their jobs, but not the coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Harry, do you know what this move is? And I know this is not a fair comment. It's Lions-esque. It's the Lions. Nobody fires or doesn't renew an entire offensive staff but keeps the coordinator. I've never heard of that. Only here, baby. Just like the top 10 picks in the draft, where somebody got whacked in every organization, coordinator or above. Coordinator, coach, or GM. You know what it says for the 5th pick? Lions? None. They're telling you at 4 and 12, hey, you did a good enough job to stay. But it's business as usual.
From the team's epic second-half collapse to the off-the-field issues and how we can improve as Detroit's field general, head coach Jim Schwartz also took some time to put the season under review.
Well, there's going to be a different dynamic this offseason than last, with the ability to be able to try to keep the team together. There's going to be changes in fact life in the NFL, and we need to be able to be prepared to deal with those. There's evaluation that goes on to every single season. That doesn't change this year as opposed to any other. Our after-season protocol when it comes to evaluating what we did well, what we did not do well, what changes we need, what needs we have, what resources we have, all those things, that's not going to change. But I think there is a little bit different dynamic. We're not coming off the 10-6 season. We're not trying to, do our best to hold that team together. We're coming off a 4-12 season, and part of the NFL, part of this whole thing is that's not good enough, and there's going to have to be changes. We're not just going to be able to stay on the same course. Our philosophies won't change.
Nothing right now. Again, that's all part of a process. We have some coaches that are under contract, other guys whose contracts are up. Again, that's a dynamic in this league now. There's opportunities for coaches. There's opportunities for advancement. Again, we worked very hard to try to keep our staff together last year. Don't know if we'll be able to do the same thing. We'll just have to wait, but that'll still be part of the same process. We'll evaluate the same as we always do, and move forward.
Contracts up.
I'm not going to go into that. I don't have any comment on the guys that are and the guys that and I didn't comment on my own. I don't want to comment on players. I mean, I think it suffices to say that some are and some aren't. And, I think that's that's nothing for us to talk about here. I mean, when we do get them signed, I think we can acknowledge that, but that's probably about as far as we go. Yeah, we're on our normal end of season wrap up, and they're heavily involved in that normal end of season wrap up. But it's business as usual. And again, I'm not going to, like I said yesterday, I'm not going to go into personal conversations or private conversations. But yes, we are in a normal end of season, and I think I'll just say where I was yesterday on that, and just take an approach of not commenting on job status and contract and stuff like that. I think part of that whole thing that came yesterday was, is trying to get people to comment on it, trying to get people to say, including me, and I think I just stay with what I believe and keeping my focus on working to get this team back and to where we all want it. Ownership, front office, coaches, players, fans, everybody wants this team to be successful. And if our focus is on that, then we're focused on the right thing. I think it certainly affected the view of the team. And when we said all along it was a select few players, but it affected the whole bunch, and it became a topic of discussion for people to have to deal with. And anytime that you take focus away from the game that's coming up, or the process of OTAs, or the process of training camp, and the urgency to improve, and you divide players' attention, I think it can have an effect. And the biggest thing is it affected the image of the team. I think it obviously after training camp, we didn't have any off-field arrests or anything like that after what happened with Aaron Berry over the summer. But that I don't want to say damage was done; it's a bad way to put it. But that die was cast, and it became an item it became an item with the players and dealing with the media and everything else. And that's the unfortunate thing. It just divided the focus of the team. It couldn't always be on the team. They were always asking or answering those kind of questions. Well, everybody has personal responsibility, and we've seen what happens when guys don't take care of their stuff. It can affect the team. It can also affect them personally and their professional careers. Every situation is different, but as a team, off the field incidents are extremely detrimental to what we want to do, and we will make every effort as a team to prepare to move on from people that make bad decisions. I think that you can't prepare for everything, but when people prove that they can't make good decisions, then as an organization, we need to prepare to be able to go without them. And I think, and that's no different, Dave, than the way we were when we left OTAs. It was that was basically the same speech. We had one player that had 2 incidents over the summer. He paid a price for it, but also the team paid a price for that, and that's something that we can't afford going forward. Like I said, there's evaluation every single week. You look at the way you organize, the way you practice, the off-season program, training camp, meetings, all that different stuff, and that's always a work in progress. The way we prepared this year was slightly different than the year before, slightly different than the year before that. The way our off-season program will go is slightly different, mainly because of rules and things like that. I think that there's definitely places for me to improve. I don't know if I'm going to sit here and list them, but we're very realistic about where we are. 4-12 wasn't good enough, and as a head coach, that's my ultimate responsibility. And if there's one area that you can point to that I need to improve, and it's wins. Everything else is all geared toward getting those wins. But we're 4-12 this year. It's whether that's down from 10-6. Or if it had been up from 0-16, it's still not good enough, and we're all aware of that. Yeah, certainly throwing that challenge flag. I wish I'd have had that crew last night or yesterday. Like I said before, I wish I had a shoe to throw, or if I had been smart enough to do that. But yeah, I mean, that's you learn from every different situation. Every single thing that goes on. Sometimes you look back and you say, yeah, that was a really good decision. Sometimes you say, I need to do that better. That was an obvious one. It got a lot of attention, and but that probably wasn't the most critical area over the course of the season. It was critical in that game, but over the course of the season, wasn't something that came up time and time again, and everything else. There's probably other areas that are more works in progress with our team and me, than that, but that certainly got a lot of attention.
When the man in charge of assembling talent on your football team basically comes out and admits that the club may have overvalued the talent on their roster, you have a significant problem. And for Martin Mayhew and head coach Jim Schwartz, they find themselves in that particular bind as they head into an ever so crucial and vital offseason. Because you see, a year ago, the Lions fell asleep at the wheel after falling into a false sense of security after going 10-6 in 2011 and making the playoffs for the first time in 12 years. The Lions depended too heavily on players coming back from injury, and that job at best would make a significant recovery from a history of concussions. However, as the late Tom Kowalski, a longtime beat writer for the club, once said, hope is not a strategy. The Lions have got to reevaluate their draft strategy and the way they acquire talent. The best player available philosophy is something that the Lions have implemented since Mayhew has been in charge of the entire football operations. And while that is a sound strategy, if you have a core group of reliable players, the Lions simply aren't in that same boat. The Lions don't necessarily have to draft for need all of the time. However, they have to start building and maintaining a structure that will ultimately lead them to a consistent level of performance year in and year out. And right now, the Lions have to reassess where the roster and level of talent truly is as they continue to put the pieces to this puzzle together. And while Mayhew and Schwarz will be given a second chance to fix what troubles the team and to fifth at the helm of the franchise, it's time for everyone to take a step back, reassess their position, and come together with one cohesive, effective, and sound strategy for everlasting victory as the Lions continue to make yet another effort to restore the roar. Kevin McShann, Sports Beat, report.